and we'll pick up a few at the end then as well. But I just want to get through as much content as we can. So, AI in search. Why are we kind of speaking about this? Well, there is a lot of noise, as you've probably seen and heard over the last 6 to 12 months, and we just want to make sure that we are kind of cutting through that noise and kind of the hype that is kind of being shared and kind of bashed around, so we can kind of leave you guys reassured that it is nothing to worry about, and that you can probably have a better idea of what you guys need to do in terms of your digital strategy. So I just wanted to start off with a little bit of reassurance for you guys, and kind of take a trip down memory lane, so to speak. So every few years, we do see something new when it comes to SEO that kind of promises to kill that traditional SEO and the traditional kind of format that we know SEO to be. And as time has shown, that hasn't happened yet. So going back a decade, in 2015, we had a huge algorithm update from Google, where everything was mobile first. And if you didn't have a website that was optimized specifically for mobile or wasn't responsive, then you were basically dead, and that desktop was dead as a whole. That didn't happen. A couple of years later, we had AMP pages, which are accelerated mobile pages, where you had to have a version which was stripped back and very simplified of your website. Again, that didn't really shake things up as what people were saying. A couple of years later, then we had voice search in 2018. So much so, Comscore, who are quite a big online publisher, they predicted that by 2020 that 50% of all searches would be done via voice. And again, that didn't happen. We then fast forwarded a couple more years, and we had the introduction of Core Web Vitals, where kind of page speed and page experience were the most important thing in SEO, and that if your website wasn't loading in a split second, you had no chance. Again, that was managed, and people survived through that. And now we have AI overviews, and again, we're hearing the same kind of rhetoric that SEO is dead. Every time the kind of technology advances, we are hearing the same narrative, but every single time, SEO in the traditional sense hasn't died. It's just evolved, or it's just grown up a bit. So it's exactly the same thing here. So I just wanted to reassure everyone that no, SEO is not dead. It just means that we need to be a little more tactful of how we approach our SEO implementation. It has become more technical now. It's become more user focused than previously, and it's probably a bit more effective now, and it kind of separates those organizations and those online entities that are really focusing on providing that honest kind of user focused content versus those that aren't. So AI overviews are just another kind of dot on this timeline, and I'm sure within a year or two there's going to be another new kind of technology advance that we'll be speaking about, and you'll probably hear the same things around SEO being dead again. So just wanted to start off by kind of reassuring everyone that it's not all doom and gloom. In reality, the introduction of AI overviews and these large language models, or LLMs, it's changed the way search has kind of the way the search is performed. A lot of people think that the introduction of AI tools and LLMs will mean that traditional search practices die out, and they will replace those traditional search practices or behaviors. But in reality, search has now become expansionary. So what we've seen is that with the introduction of these AI tools such as ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, Perplexity, that the overall usage of online search engines like Google and Bing hasn't really decreased. What we are seeing, though, is the actual journey and people's online behaviors just changing slightly. So where we have Google, we tend to use Google for specific activities. And then when we have these AI tools such as ChatGPT, we use them for other different activities, but they supplement each other as opposed to replacing. So for ChatGPT and these other kind of AI generative tools, we use them for creativity and brainstorming. So kind of writing code or coming up with new ideas. Whereas if we need to verify a fact or buy insurance or book a flight or anything in the traditional sense, we are still going to Google, or the majority of users are still going to Google. Data also has been found that around just 1% of total website traffic for individual sites account for these AI tools and the traffic that's being driven to websites. So you can see that even though it's a massive kind of introduction to the digital space, it isn't having that big of an impact yet on kind of overall website traffic. So it's definitely not something that's replaced traditional search. It's just expanded it so that you are now kind of using different tools. So there's a nice little image here with research from SEMrush, whereby they will show you the usage of Google and ChatGPT before and after ChatGPT was introduced. So we can see here that before ChatGPT, the average sessions per week on Google was 10.5. And since ChatGPT has been released, it's actually increased. So we can see now that it's just forming part of that wider online search journey, as opposed to totally kind of replacing it. So again, this is a bit of reassurance that the traditional SEO practices that everyone should be following are still very, very important. So next, we need to think about how we measure success, and because that is currently changing. So I wanted to just talk about a concept known as the great decoupling, and it's probably something that you guys have heard in the past. And if you haven't, this will hopefully clear things up. So in the past with traditional SEO, the way that we would measure success or have a way of measuring success would be within Google Search Console. So here we have a typical performance table that you will see within Google Search Console that reports on total clicks and total impressions. So historically, what you would see is the impressions and clicks line kind of moving together as one. Whereas now what we are seeing is them kind of splitting apart. So that's where that decoupling notion comes from. And you can see this happening here, whereby impressions increase and clicks decrease. And the reason for that is because now, if a website or your website is being cited within AI overviews, as well as the traditional blue links on the search results page, you are now getting more impressions. So every time you're cited within the AI overviews, that counts as an impression, and you're still getting the traditional impressions from the top 10 kind of blue links. But because the information that users are searching for is being delivered to them front and center within these AI overviews, they're not then clicking through to the website to find that information. So the effect or the result is what we're seeing here, whereby impressions are increasing because your content is being shown twice, but nobody's clicking through to your website, so your clicks are going down. So that's where we see this decoupling effect. But what I'm here today to tell you is that it is not a cause for kind of panic or concern, and it definitely doesn't mean that you are failing as a kind of brand or organization if this is the results that you are seeing, because this is what everybody is currently kind of going through, or the majority of people anyway. A really nice angle and way to kind of see this is that it acts more like a filter. And what I mean by that is, if people are kind of just satisfied by a quick AI answer, and they're in that research, or that kind of top of funnel stage where they're just kind of browsing and trying to find information, the likelihood of those users actually coming to your website and completing a purchase or signing up or submitting a lead is pretty low. They were just in that research and that browsing stage. So we've kind of filtered and screened that low intent traffic away. But now what we're seeing is those users that actually do click, and those clicks that we are seeing coming through to the websites, these are the higher intent users and audiences who are more qualified and they are more ready to convert. So in a way, what we're doing now is we're trading that traffic volume for traffic value. So the clicks that we are getting to the website are going to be higher value clicks, which then leads on to other things that you need to make sure that you are implementing correctly, like CRO, ensuring that your website, the experience is good, the pages load fast, the conversion paths are optimized, your navigation is well structured, because it's hard to get these clicks to your website now. And if we are getting those clicks, we want to make sure that we're not giving those users a bad experience, and our website actually gives them what they're looking for. So it has kind of moved the emphasis slightly now on to ensuring even more so that your website is better optimized for those conversion paths. So how do we optimize for kind of AI visibility? Well, the good news is that you don't need to have kind of a PhD in machine learning to do this. The strategies that seem to be kind of winning in AI search are the same ones that SEO, experts and people within the field have been screaming about for years. So none of the tactics are new, but they shouldn't be anyway. We just have to be a lot stricter about how we implement them. So I've got a couple of these on screen here. There are a lot more, but these are just a few of those. The first one, chunking. You've probably heard the word chunking a lot. If you haven't, I'm sure you will. But this is just a fancy word for formatting. So people will talk about how you have to chunk your content into bite-sized bits that contain certain bits of information, because it is friendlier for the AI bots to basically read. But this isn't anything new. As best practice, your content should always be well formatted using clear headings, bullet points, short paragraphs, and that it is readable for humans. But now there's a greater emphasis because it becomes better readable to these AI robots. So chunking and proper formatted content is a very good way to help your website appear. Second, Q&A formatting. This is a big one because ultimately these AI tools, they think in questions and answers. As the user, we are asking it a question most of the time, and then they are going out and retrieving the answer. So you want your content to be the answer as much as possible. In order for you to do that, you need to be writing the question to that answer explicitly on your page or your website in some format. So again, this isn't something which is new. It's just being emphasized a lot more now, so that you are ensuring your answers are the one that are given by these AI tools, and they're not being generated from somewhere else. And then the last one is structured data. So again, structured data is nothing new. Schema and structured data have been a very important technical aspect of SEO. since about 2011. So again, it's just been emphasized a lot more now. So the way that structured data works in terms of AI search is that it basically acts as kind of like a translator, and it kind of turns your content into a language that the AI tools can understand better. So ensuring that all your pages across your website are marked up with correct schema and structured data, so that it basically tells these AI tools what that page is about. For example, you've got service schema. If you've got service pages, ensuring that every page has got service schema. If you have products, ensuring that product schema is attached. If you've got FAQ pages, FAQ schema, organizational schema. So all of these things act as kind of post-it notes for the AI tool, so that they can read your content very easily and parse it and then deliver the correct answer. But again, these aren't new tactics. These are older tactics, best practices that just needs to be implemented a little bit stricter and kind of more widely across your website, as opposed to single pages or single pieces of content. So I just wanted to quickly go over how these AI systems actually work and what the process is, and what it goes through from start to finish. Because if you guys understand the process better, you'll be able to optimize for that process better. So the concept that they use is called RAG, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And a nice way to think of this is that these AI tools and these LLMs, they are frozen in time based on the last training date that they undertook. So it's kind of like they've taken a kind of a closed book exam, for example. So they can only provide the answers on the things that they've revised for. But if their revision stopped last year and you ask it a question on something that happened yesterday, it's not going to have the answer. So what they tend to do then is they hallucinate, where they lie, essentially. So what these developers of these AI tools have turned to is this system called RAG. And this turns the AI kind of process from a closed book exam into an open book kind of exam. So they have the entire kind of internet to go out and retrieve the answer, so they are not hallucinating as much as they would if they didn't. So RAG retrieval, that's the first step. So when you ask the AI a question, it will pause, it will search the web, and it will essentially be conducting a Google search as we would, but a million times faster. And it will retrieve the most accurate facts and answers. So that's the first part. Augmentation, sorry, is when they kind of collate those facts and present them, but they store them within its own memory. So once it's got that answer or that fact, it then stores it within its own memory. And then the generation is it actually providing the answer to you. So the importance of this and why it matters to us is because if your content or your website is not optimized for that initial retrieval phase, you're never going to be kind of the answer that somebody is looking for. So it's super, super important that your website and your content is optimized for retrieval. So you have clear headings, you've got good schema and structured data. Your content is formatted in a nice, easy way for these AI tools to read and digest, essentially. So where SEO currently is now, it's essentially kind of like that library for the AI system. And if your website isn't retrievable and it's not in the library, then you and your content are never going to be the answer to any questions that it works or it's been asked. So I just wanted to just go over this system just so everybody is kind of clued up and understands the way that these tools work, so that we can better optimize our websites and our content for it. So following the RAG system, where information on the web can be retrieved from, and that retrieval process. This has probably been the biggest shift in the effect of the way that we are cited or that we can appear within these LLMs. So now we are not just optimizing our websites or where your website or the content on your website. As organizations now, to be successful within this new era of AI, you need to be optimizing your entire digital footprint. LLMs now, they train on the open web, not just a website, but the open web. So they are retrieving information from absolutely anywhere and everywhere. I have highlighted some of the main places where AI are getting information from. So we have Reddit and forums like Quora. These are very, very heavily cited, which you'll see towards the end where I've got some information and some data. But these are really heavily cited by AI tools and these LLMs, and it provides really high value training data. And the reason for that is because there is so much user generated content on these forums, and that they are most of the time honest answers, and they are trying to provide value to queries or questions or problems that other people have, that these AI tools are really valuing the information on those platforms such as Reddit. We then have YouTube. So YouTube is the second largest search engine behind Google. Obviously, Google own YouTube, and it is still a place where a lot of people go to find answers to a lot of the questions. And what we find is that these AI tools, they will use Google, and they will basically retrieve information from transcripts that are assigned to YouTube videos to answer any questions that are asked. So having visibility and being present on YouTube with information that forms video as well as text via transcripts is also really important now. And then finally, the social platforms. So, again, this isn't anything new in terms of best practices with your organizations being active across socials and showing that you are an active organization. But even more so now, these AI tools and LLMs are scouring the internet, including social platforms, to make sure that you are active and that your information that you're sharing is consistent across other areas of the information that your organization is present on. So making sure that socials forms part of your wider digital strategy, again, is even more important now. So those are the areas or the main areas where LLMs and these AI tools are now retrieving that data from. So we're talking about socials and YouTube. This all relates to content. So now search is not just what we have in a text box or text on your website. It's now turned multimodal, and it is now mandatory. So it's not just an option now of kind of repurposing content into different formats for the sake of it, or it's a nice to have. It is really important now that if you are creating pieces of content, that you are creating it in different formats and it lives in as many places as possible. So you are giving your organization, your brand, a higher visibility rate amongst these AI tools that are scraping information from all over the net. So what we are seeing within AI overviews is that they are aggressively citing original videos, original audios, and original images. So if you haven't got podcasts, or if you have a podcast, then transcribing that podcast, that audio then becomes searchable text for these LLMs. If you've got original or first-party data, transforming that data into an infographic that you share is really, really good and beneficial. AI loves looking and kind of citing visual sources, especially original, authentic video image sources, not stock images. So I know that a lot of websites use a lot of stock imagery. These types of images are basically blind to AI. So you want to avoid stock imagery as much as possible and keep imagery as original as possible with correctly formatted like alt text, so that you're speaking as much as possible to these AI tools. And then video as well, so ensuring that you've got kind of short form and long form formats of all your videos, again with clear audio and transcripts, so that the AI can listen and understand exactly what you're talking about. So multimodal content is super, super important now. Authority. So this is something that is also extremely important. So creating the content and having the content across your website is amazing and it's good, but for you to have that upper edge and that kind of reassurance from the AI side that you are a credible source to cite, you need to have a level of authority. And the reason why it's important to have this authority is because of the hallucinations that AIs can perform sometimes. So that is their biggest weakness, is that they can hallucinate if they don't have that correct information. To kind of fix this, the way that these tools are engineered, to be really risk averse. So they try to avoid risk if possible, and they do prioritize sources that have high EAT scores. So EAT is a framework that Google introduced a few years ago now, and its purpose was, aligned to this as well. It stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust, EEAT. And essentially what that does is it gives Google a mechanism of determining who is a authority within their field, how much experience they have, how much expertise they have. And the idea is that the higher your EAT score is, the more credible you are, the more likely you are to be cited. So your authority is now your defense against the AIs then potentially hallucinating. And there's a few things that you can do to improve your authority or build kind of that moat around your website and around your content. So we have digital PR, which is a really, really good strategy for you to implement, as by doing this, you will be getting mentions on high authority websites. Things such as news, university, or government websites are really, really good if you're getting mentions and backlinks from those, as they are a really safe kind of incredible source. You have author bios, which is a really impactful one. If you are writing content on your website, it is really important that you have something that you can connect that content to, or someone. So having an author profile or bios, so that a user and the AIs can see the author bios, they can see the history of all of the content that they have written. Ideally, those author bios can link to other areas of the internet, such as LinkedIn. So you can link to a LinkedIn profile so that the LLMs can then, connect the dots and kind of create that web. The stronger that web is, and the more dots that are on that kind of web, the stronger that authority becomes. So author bios are a really, really strong one. We mentioned the third-party mentions, which can be driven via digital PR. And then consistency. This is probably the easiest one for everyone to kind of go and do. And that is to ensure that wherever your brand or your organization is mentioned on the internet, so whether it's your own website, your socials, directory listings, the information that is listed on these platforms and spaces, they are consistent. So you want to make sure that your organization's name, your address, and your phone number, all those core facts that relate to your website, are consistent and they match up. If they don't, and your website says one thing, your Google business profile says another, your socials say another, that's just going to confuse the LLMs, and it will kind of de-rank you in terms of your authority, and it may impact your ability to then be cited. So on the screen, I've got a little QR code for you guys to scan, and on there you will find a document, and it's from a company, an agency in America called AMSIV, and they provide some example pages that you guys can create if they don't already exist on your website or across your digital kind of landscape, that look to build up your EAT scores and your trust signals. So hopefully that's a nice little takeaway for you guys, so you can review that and kind of see where those gaps are between your website and what you could be doing, so that you are giving yourself the best possibility of appearing. Next then, so what does this all mean for you and kind of the strategy that you employ? So going into 2026 now, the strategy needs to be a proactive one and not a reactive one. We've got some tactics here, or things certainly that you should be thinking about if you're not already doing, and if they do relate to you and they are actionable, then definitely should be what you should be looking at. So the first one we have is proactive answering. What we don't want is kind of for users to wait around for answers that can potentially be given to them by AI. What we want to do is be proactively answering questions that these users are potentially asking. Users are going to things like Reddit, or they could be going to review sites where these LLMs are active, and the LLMs could potentially find answers to questions that you want to be answering, but you're not answering. And that answer that these LLMs and AI tools are capturing may not be the right answer, or may be a negative answer. So, for example, there could be a complaint on Reddit, for example, that somebody could have posted that an LLM reads, captures, and then serves as part of an AI overview that is related to your organization. So the idea here is to proactively answer all of the questions that people may be asking about your brand directly on your website. So whether that's to do with your brand itself, your pricing structures, product information, the idea is to answer all of these questions honestly and directly. Again, QR code on the screen, exactly the same format as the previous one. There are a bunch of page suggestions, or some of these questions that you could and should be looking at in terms of your organization and products and services that you offer. So please have a scan and read of that, and you'll get a better idea of some of the things that you should be talking about and answering on your website proactively, so you're not leaving these AI tools to find those answers. You are giving those answers yourself. And then we've got localization and personalization as well. So AI is getting really, really good at kind of understanding nuance, or it's certainly getting better. So very generic content is not going to kind of work as well as it probably used to, or could have performed. The emphasis now is on making content as personalized and localized as possible. So if you have content that can be translated or localized to specific regions or cultural nuances, then it's advised that you do that. And then in terms of the personalization, if you can address specific pain points or answer questions that certain segments of users will be answering, then again, that's advised. Because like I said, the AI tools are getting a lot smarter now, and generic content just isn't going to work. So highly specific, locally relevant content will now be the content that wins. So yeah, speaking about content and keeping that content up to date and fresh, it's always been a really kind of important factor for Google when it comes to ranking websites and content. And it's the same with LLMs as well. All of these things prefer fresh content and up-to-date content. The fresher that content, the better. And something that we have all done, I'm sure everybody has done in the past, is simply kind of change a date on an old blog post to make it look fresh. There is cases where that has worked quite well, but unfortunately, it's not going to cut it anymore. So this is known as artificial refreshing, and LLMs do not like this. They are now smart enough to know that you have just simply changed a date on a blog post, as they won't be able to detect any semantic changes, so any kind of wider changes to that content. So now what we need to be doing is providing those meaningful updates. So if you've got new data or new examples or case studies, or if there's been recent developments, adding that into your content. Like I said, AI, it kind of craves the latest information, kind of circles back to that RAG process, whereby it wants to retrieve the most up-to-date information as possible. So ensuring that your information is kept up to date with the latest developments, is really, really, really important. LLMs are designed to be volatile. They're not designed to be kind of static. So it just adds that extra emphasis to make sure that your content is kept up to date and is fresh. And we are not just changing the date from 2 years ago to today. So just wanted to reiterate that as well. So just wanted to quickly go over some metrics, because, of course, with any new kind of technology or introduction, there's always going to be new ways to measure success. So there are a bunch of metrics, and too many to kind of go over today, but I've just picked out a few for you guys that are probably going to be the ones that you'll hear of the most, what it means, and then ways that you can quickly improve it. So AI visibility score, this is how often your brand or your content appears within prompts and within those answers. The way that you can improve this is by building deep topic clusters. Instead of being kind of wide, you want to have topic depth, so that you identify an entity or a topic within your website that your organization is related to, and you are building deep topic clusters so that the AI again can understand your industry, your website, the content that you are putting out, and again, this will help kind of build up your authority within that specific niche. We have brand mentions, so just the total times that your brand was named within these AI answers. Again, this will relate to authority, so ensuring that your website has got links and mentions from high authority websites. We've got share of voice, which is the total percentage of mentions that your brand has had compared to competitors within AI results as well. So the idea is that you want to have a higher share of voice than your competitors, as this will show you that you are getting a higher percentage of visibility for certain keywords or prompts compared to your competitors. You have citation rate, so how often your site is being directly quoted. And then we have AI-driven traffic. So how much traffic are you actually getting from these AI platforms? So just a few search metrics there, new search metrics that you guys can start looking at and hopefully start reporting on as well. So how do you report on these things? There are a bunch, and I say that lightly. There are a bunch of AI tools and search tools that you can look at. There seems to be new ones every single day. So please be mindful when you see things on the internet about an AI service or tool. Unfortunately, when things like this occur and there's kind of a new advancement in the technology, people do see that as an advantage for them to then sell you a service. So there are a lot of kind of low quality services, which are just jumping and on the hype and kind of making false promises. But there are also some reliable ones as well. So if you are looking to kind of use any of these AI search tools, or you want to nudge in the right direction, then there are a couple here. So you can see some very reliable and well-known brands such as SEMrush, Ahrefs, and SE Ranking. So these traditional kind of trusted tools that have those traditional SEO kind of reporting features and functionality. Every single one of these are now implementing AI related reports and tooling. So if you have these, I encourage you to test some of these new tools out that they're offering. If you don't, sign up to some free trials. And then we have some more AI specific tools as well. So we've got ones which Right Sonic, Athena, and Profound. So these are some other kind of SEO, AI, SEO, or GEO, or whatever you want to call it, very specific tools for this specific use case, as opposed to SEMrush and SE Ranking, which are wider SEO tools that have introduced some AI search features. So here are just some examples that you guys can go ahead and start looking at as well. And yeah, I just wanted to finish off, or looking at some data, because all of this is cool and it's okay, but what is actually happening? So a lot of this stuff here kind of backs up some of the things that we've discussed today. First, we have here some research again from SEMrush, which looks at the top cited domains across ChatGPT and across AI overviews. And what you'll see here is consistency with these UGC platforms. So within ChatGPT, you can see that the top cited domains, Wikipedia, Reddit, by far the two highest. You can see the amount that they are being cited has dropped quite a bit, but they are still the most cited. Here, you all got LinkedIn as well. So areas and platforms where users are going and publishing content themselves, really, really favorable to these LLMs. Again, you got Quora here. So these are the most cited domains within AI overviews. Reddit, again, top 2, LinkedIn, YouTube. So you can see a lot of those UGC platforms. Next, we have kind of the factors of what is kind of driving citations. So you can see total number of referring domains, total domain traffic, some core web vitals metrics here, page trust, domain trust. So a lot of the same things that would be used to get your traditional content cited, still very, very important. But this kind of gives you an idea of what are the type of things that will influence your AI citations as well. So we have those there. And then lastly, just something I guess is kind of like a debunk. You might have heard the llms.txt file, and maybe people saying that this is absolutely essential for your organization and your content ability to be cited. What this file is it acts very similar to a robots.txt file on your website, whereby you are kind of guiding AI scrapers to your content. But we can see here that nearly 90% of websites actually don't have an active LLMs.txt file. Only 10% do. So if you do hear anything to say, it's absolutely essential or it's needed, it's not been proven yet. And Google themselves have even come out and said that this isn't something that will directly influence your website's ability to be cited. So I just wanted to let you guys know that, yeah, that's something that you don't specifically have to have implemented on your website. It does present maybe an early opportunity. It's not something that should totally be disregarded. It may have some value in the future, but for right now, it's not something that you must have. And then, yes, to actually finish off, I just wanted to leave you guys with something to think about and to kind of tie everything that we've spoken about today kind of together and put in a kind of an action plan for you guys to go away and think about and potentially look to implement. So kind of broken this down into like 30-day chunks. Um, and each of these things that optimize for a different kind of stage. So the first 30 days, you should really be looking at optimizing your website for that retrieval stage. Like we said, that is the first stage of the RAG process. If your content isn't retrievable, you're never going to show up. So making sure that your content is correctly formatted and chunked. You've got Q&A formatting, you've got structured data, and the really core technical foundation of your website is solid. If your website isn't technically sound from the get-go, the chances of you being cited in AI overviews or these LLMs are pretty slim. So the traditional technical SEO foundations need to be in place in order for your content to be retrievable. Next, you'd want to look at kind of feeding that training data. So this is the augmentation. You want to make sure that all of your content is up to date with real data. You want to make sure that you are expanding your presence across all channels where humans go and interact. Reddit, Quora, all of these four kind of forum platforms. Start making your content multimodal. If you create a blog post, can you change that blog post into a short form video? Can you do maybe a short audio that you can share across your platforms as well? So making sure that all of your content becomes multimodal and is shared across your entire digital estate. And then localizing and personalizing your content as much as possible where possible as well. And then the last 90 days is all about building the moat and increasing your authority. So things that you can do here are launching digital PR campaigns, going through and ensuring all of your NAP data is consistent, proactively answering those questions that users could be asking across your website directly. So LLMs and AI tools don't have to find information from random places. They are directly provided on your website. And then looking at these new metrics and how successful your new kind of implementation of these things are. And then feeding that into kind of the reporting so that you have a new kind of measure of what you're doing and how effective it actually is. So that is what you guys can do. Again, this is something that we are able to help out with. If you've got any further questions or kind of you don't know where to get started, it's something that we're kind of actively doing for all of our clients and stuff. So if you guys have any questions on how to do any of this stuff, then we are all ears. You can definitely come to us for some help. So keep calm and optimize on. SEO is not dead. It is just a lot harder now to fake in a way. The future kind of within the SEO space, it definitely belongs to those organizations that are providing authentic content that is actually valuable to humans and that it will help humans and is technically sound. So like I said, it's going to be more of a screening process between those organizations that are doing things correctly and those that are not. The tactics that we employ, they've not changed, they've just evolved. The goals that we look to kind of carry out are exactly the same. And that goal is to just be the best answer on the internet. Don't leave other people or other places as the chance to be that answer. You want to make sure that you guys are the answer every time. And that's it. Thank you all for your time.